Yeah. Hello. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, professors, dignitaries, friends, and your guest. We welcome to this Professor N.R. Kamath Distinguished Institute lecture. So, I would like to start off by sharing a thought. It occurred me in the morning when I was thinking about this thing that I guess it was COVID time, and I used to watch this YouTube channel. I think many of you might know it also. It's called 2 Minute Papers. So it's just summarizing papers in 2 minutes and then saying. So it was interesting. But the interesting fact is that every video starts with a statement saying, "What a time to be alive." So it was always giving me a positive vibe. It's like in the midst of COVID, thinking that what a time to be alive. But at the same time, today, what do you think? Isn't it like what a time to be alive that we are discussing about AI things and all of these things? And for that, we have this topic today: future of work and workers in the AI era. And for that, we have Professor Pramod Khargonekar, who is actually a distinguished alumnus of IIT Bombay and a distinguished alumnus of IIT Bombay, as well as a professor of University of California, Irvine, and he'll be delivering this lecture. So before moving forward, I would like to play a short video about Professor N.R. Kamath. So been just surfing about him and came to know that he is actually a great visionary person here, like a person who had a great vision about India and as well as in education, especially when it comes to IIT. So yeah, I'll play a short video.
साक्षात् परब्रह्म गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः।
The chemical engineering profession and teaching in India has been uniquely blessed by the benevolent touch of an illustrious guru, Professor N.R. Kamath. N.R.K. took up the position of Deputy Director in 1960. As the Deputy Director of the Institute in the early formative years, Professor Kamath held the center stage and undertook the yeoman task of setting the framework and processes to streamline the running of academic programs. He was credited for drafting the Institute's earliest academic offerings and considered the father of all academic things, who strode the Institute corridors with the rules of his tongue. For many students, Professor Kamath was the inspiration that set them on the road to success. For some other students, his shoulders were the ones on which they rested their problems. For many young faculty, he was the ultimate mentor and role model. For the underdogs, he was their champion. For the institution, He was the epitome of an educationalist par excellence. Gurus such as Professor N.R. Kamath helped shape great institutions and bless the individuals in it with the priceless and sublime gift of knowledge that sustains over several generations. Thanks, Professor N.R. Kamath, for this priceless gift of knowledge and pioneering mentorship. You will always, forever live in our hearts.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? So now we have Professor Upendra Bhandarkar, who's actually Dean of Alumni and Corporate Relations, IIT Bombay. I welcome him to introduce our speaker.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce Professor Pramod Khargonekar. Professor Pramod Khargonekar received his BTech degree from IIT Bombay and his master's degree in mathematics and PhD degree in electrical engineering from the University of Florida. He was the chair of the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science from 1997 to 2001 and held the position of Claude E. Shannon Professor of Engineering Science at the University of Michigan. From 2001 to 2009, he was the Dean of the College of Engineering and the Eckes Professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of Florida till 2016. After serving briefly as the Deputy Director of ARPA-E in 2012-13, he served the head of the Directorate of Engineering at the National Science Foundation or NSF from 2013 till 2016. He was Vice Chancellor for Research and Distinguished Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at the University of California, Irvine from 2016 to 2025, where he is currently Distinguished Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. His research and teaching interests include systems and control theory, machine learning, applications to energy and manufacturing systems, and ethical and societal implications of technology. He has received numerous honors and awards, including the IEEE Control Systems Award, the IEEE Baker Prize, the IEEE Control Systems Society Board Lecture Prize, IEEE Control Systems Society XLB Award, the NSF Presidential Young Investigator Award, AACC Ekman Award, and the Distinguished Alumni as well as the Distinguished Service Awards from IIT Bombay. That's his alma mater. An inaugural Hall of Fame inductee, Electrical and Computer Engineering Department, University of Florida. He is a fellow of IEEE, IFAC and AAAS. So it's really my pleasure to have Professor Pramod Khargonekar here. Please welcome him. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? All right. Well, it's a great honor and pleasure to be here. I've been with my wife here since November. It's about 3 months in this N.R. Kamath professorship. So I thank all those who made this professorship possible. It's been a real blast. I like to tell a story about my time here. And that story is something like this. Ellen Langer is a very famous psychologist at Harvard University. She's famous for many, many things that she has done. But one other thing she did was a study, I think it's called counter-cyclical study. She took 2 groups of people in their 70s and beyond who were having, sort of decline. So problems with walking, problem with memory, so general decline. One group of people, were untreated, nothing special about them. The other group, she put them in an environment that was like when they were in their 30s and 40s. And what she found is that people who were in the environment when they were in the 30s and 40s improved pretty dramatically in their physical as well as mental performance. So I think I'm one of Ellen Langer's subjects in that walking around in this campus every day, I think my brain is working like I was 18-year-old walking from Hostel 5 up to the main building. So it's been a blast, and I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to present NR Kamath lecture. Before I sort of plunge into the talk, I looked up Professor Kamath. Now, as it happens, when I came here in 1972 as an undergraduate, I was electrical. NR Kamath was, of course, deputy director, but also head of chemical. My roommate happened to be, his name was Srinivas Gondalekar. He happened to be a chemical engineering student. So he would tell me stories about NR Kamath. So I never personally experienced him, but the video we just watched, plus these 3 quotes that I took from my readings about the man. I'm not going to read the quotes, but I think his interest in things beyond engineering and technology are absolutely crucial to what I'm going to say today, because you will see a lot of that. And then the last one, this is an interchange he had with some student, and I grew up in a small village for the first 10 years of my life. So when he talked about me too coming from small village, I somehow could relate to what NR Kamath was. And so it's a great source of inspiration. Okay, so I'm going to talk about AI and future of work. So to begin our thinking, I thought I would start with Demis Hassabis, founder of Google DeepMind. He won the Nobel Prize in chemistry for AlphaFold, which solved the protein folding problem. He was interviewed by The Guardian. Again, I'm not going to read the quotes, but basically he thinks that the AI revolution that's coming could be 10 times bigger than industrial revolution and 10 times faster. So keep those 2 things in mind as we think, as I go through my lecture. And then this notion that within 5 to 10 years, we will have something that will have cognitive capabilities of humans. Again, something to bear in mind as I go through my lecture. Let me say a couple of things here. I live in America for most part, so I inherit all the biases that an American professor living in America, with all the AI stuff that's going on. So if I say something that's not appropriate for the Indian context, please, I beg your forgiveness for that, and then point it out to me so that I won't make the same mistake again, that I won't say something that's inappropriate for the Indian audience. But please remember that I'm coming with that baggage. I just pulled out a few headlines from newspapers, all very, very well-known newspapers, and you cannot spend a day today without having something like this come across your screen. Okay, you just read this every single day, something about either job apocalypse or it's the greatest invention in human history, and everything in between. I will not actually give you answers. Okay, we're talking about future. Nobody knows the future. I'm not going to give you answers. But what I'm going to do by the end of this lecture is for you to have a lens, a framework, a set of ideas through which you can examine headlines these, and when you read them, you might want to make sense of them against what I'm going to tell you. So one good place to begin thinking about what the future holds is to say, what kind of technology is AI going to be? So we are currently in the middle of a revolution. This thing is happening. So there are many thought leaders proposing many different kind of answers to this question. So there is the whole train of thought that says that we are going to create what is called artificial general intelligence, or what Dario Amodei called powerful AI, and ultimately will create artificial superintelligence, ASI. So that's one train of thought. And in fact, there's a lot of discussion that happens along this first line of thinking, that this is where we are headed with this all-powerful AI. A second train of thought is much more on the other side, that, well, AI is just another technology. We have had many of them. Well, what's the big deal? Another technology will deal with it and get on with, humanity will just go on. Third train of thought says AI will be a general purpose technology. I won't talk about it right now because I'm going to spend a lot more time on the third bullet. Fourth one is something that's unusual. People don't really talk about this much, that AI will be a social technology. I'll talk about that also. And finally, you might ask a composite question, which is, what's the best analogy for AI? Like, what is it like that we have experienced in the past? Internet, computers, microprocessors, electricity, steam engine, printing press, or some combination of these as a way of thinking. So you can think for yourself. As you think about AI and what's happening, you can ask yourself, what is AI going to be like? I don't want to spend any time talking about the first trend and the third, because if that's really where we are going in 5 to 10 years, pretty much anything I say is not relevant. And then there are these dystopian futures where you know. So let me just leave it there for you, and we can talk more about it in Q&A if you like. But for today's lecture, I won't talk about this. So what is this thing called general purpose technology? So there were a couple of economists at Berkeley, Bresnan and Trachtenberg. They said that not all technologies are created equal. I'll give you an example. MRI. We love MRI. Like, without MRI, we can't imagine healthcare without MRI, because it gives you a really accurate picture of what's going on. But MRI is very specialized. Compare that to the internet or computers. Those are general purpose technologies. So what are general purpose technologies? Widespread applicability. So they are applicable in all facets of society and world. Continuous improvement. That they start off being kludgy, they really don't work very well, but with passage of time, we get them better and better, and over time it just gets really, really good. No close substitutes. There is nothing like it. That is, if you choose to say, I don't want to use this technology, there is nothing like it, okay? And then fourth is enabling complementary innovations. So once the technology exists, you can do other things with it. Technology didn't mean to do those things, but since it exists, you can do other things. So this is called complementary innovations. Examples, steam engine, electricity, semiconductors, computers, and internet. Let me just run through a few of these properties so that you to sort of fix the idea. MRI, not widespread applicability. It's applicable only for health, okay? But beyond that, really, you are not going to use the MRI for much else. Continuous improvement, it probably improved, and now it is pretty stable. No close substitutes. That's not true. I mean, if I don't have the money to do MRI, I'll get an ultrasound. Well, it's not as good as MRI, but it still gives me a picture. So there are some substitutes for MRI, and doesn't enable any complementary innovations. It doesn't enable you to do other things, unlike these other ones. What Bresnan and Trachtenberg say is that these general purpose technologies are epochal innovations. They are so powerful that they drive society and economic, they did it for economic growth, that's the paper at the top, that these things drive economic growth. And one of the claims we are going to make is that AI is a general purpose technology. A second train of thought is AI is a cultural technology. This is the recent paper in Science, I think 2025, and this is specifically about LLMs, that large AI models are cultural and social technologies. So I can't capture the full thesis of the paper, but basically the argument they make is that these LLMs and this particular brand of AI has the capacity to reorganize and reconstruct representations of information at scale, at internet scale. So they can take information, all known knowledge that we have had as human beings, and they can represent and reconstruct and reorganize that information. So what they say is that because of this capacity, which is unprecedented, these are analogous to social institutions that coordinate decision making across extremely large numbers of people. And one example that we can take is markets. So market is a human invention, right? Market for bananas. Market for bananas produces a price that's a reflection of demand from millions of consumers and supply from hundreds of thousands of suppliers. It flattens all that information because my need for bananas is different from your needs for bananas. So how much I'm willing to spend on it is different. How much I like it is different. It takes all that information. It's extremely varied, and it turns it into 10 rupees per banana, okay? So this ability to flatten the information of extremely large set of sources is special to this kind of human and social institution. Their claim is that AI models are doing this to information that we have collected. It flattens it and reproduces it. In that sense, they say it's comparable to printing press. All right. So I've given you some basics that we will use to think about what's happening. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what has happened in the past. Then I'll bring you to the present as what's happening now, and then we will talk about what's going to happen in the future, all in the next 35 or so minutes. All right, so Hassabis said, this is like Industrial Revolution, okay? In the Industrial Revolution, one of the most famous episodes is what are called Luddites. And Luddites were these people around 1811 in Nottingham, and then for the next 4 or 5 years, as jobs were being lost in England as a result of spinning, they went to factories and literally used hammers to break these machines down. And so they are known as Luddites, they're anti-technology, and they're caricatured as, oh, these are the people who are backward, they don't want to embrace technology. Actually, that caricature is completely wrong. So there's a wonderful new book by Brian Merchant, I think 2023 or something like that, where he makes the case that painting Luddites as anti-technology is a big mistake, and it's an error. We're being unfair to them because the workers were actually very interested in the use of technology, but use of the technology to make their lives better. And so there is the whole book kind of makes this case that we need to rethink the opposition to technology during Industrial Revolution by the Luddites. There is a wonderful paper by R.C. Allen, 2017. He looked back on Industrial Revolution and said, what does it mean for now? This is before ChatGPT, before LLMs. So I'm just going to show you some data from that. So Industrial Revolution begins in England around 1770. As he shows, what these machines did was to increase productivity per worker. So a worker could produce a lot more because they had access to these machines. So the productivity goes up. The wages don't go up. Actually, it takes a long time before wages start going up, but ultimately by around 1830 or so, wages begin to pick up, and then they rise very nicely. So he calls it sort of the first phase of Industrial Revolution from 1750 to 1830. Right hand side is the same situation in the US, but the start is much later, 1895. Again, you have this growth in productivity. Wages grow in the beginning, but after around 1970, they stagnate. So he said there are 3 phases: Industrial Revolution, Western ascent to affluence. So this thing makes societies much richer, people much richer, higher standard of living. And then in the present, wages have flattened, productivity is still going up. That was in the West. Industrial Revolution had dramatic impact on the East. So this is the picture of manufacturing output across the world, going back to 1750 to 2016. This bar chart is not easy to read, but roughly speaking, in 1750, in China, India, and the rest of the world were about a third each, approximately. And in fact, the number for India in 1750 was 24.5% of manufactured output was from India, 24.5%. By 1880, India's fraction had reduced to 2.8%. So the same Industrial Revolution that made workers very productive in England and later on in the other Western countries also had a devastating impact on China and India and developing world. So there are these quotes, and I'll just read the last one. By 1830s, technological progress in the West meant a bleak future of work elsewhere. Okay. Now this is not just Industrial Revolution. I'm not going to say much more about this than to say colonialism also played a role in what happened here, and this is a long chapter in our history, but certainly Industrial Revolution played a role in what happened here. But it wasn't just in the East. In England, this is actually a 2023 paper. I mean, this stuff is still being researched. So one of the occupations that completely destroyed was spinning because of spinning machines. So back in say 1770, spinning was actually a high-wage occupation, especially for women. So 1 in 5 women were occupied as spinning, and they were making very decent income. In about 30-40 years, that whole profession just disappeared. There was no work like spinning because these machines were doing it. And so the conclusion that this paper that comes to is it eliminated that category of jobs, and the only work available to these women who were driven out of spinning was agriculture or seasonal work. And agriculture was precarious work. I mean, it didn't pay nearly as well, and it was seasonal, and you get it, you don't get it. So it had a pretty big impact on even within England. Agriculture is another example of what has happened to us in the past. So this is the chart of number of workers in agriculture. It used to be like 70% at one time. It's now down to like 1 or 2%. But it's not like we don't, meaning the US doesn't produce agricultural output. It's like an all-time high. So we just get better and better at producing agriculture output. It takes fewer and fewer people. So again, it's technology does this for us, that it makes people more productive. You produce a lot more, just takes fewer people. This is an interesting example of, so these are all general purpose technologies that I'm talking about. They have these dramatic impacts. Electrification, okay? Electrification is a very interesting case. Again, it's general purpose technology. It has all the 4 properties. Let me just recount for you. It's, continuous improvement. When it started, it was a very kludgy technology. It worked, it didn't work, it would go down. I mean, we know how to make motors, we knew how to make electric power lines, but it was not like 99.99% reliability that we have today, that I can just plug something into the socket and I get electricity. It took time. Continuous improvement, widespread applicability. Like there is no aspect of life where electricity is not used. It's just impossible to imagine life. And there is no close substitute. Can you imagine anything else that can substitute for electricity? Really, not really. So if I choose to say, or if we choose to say, oh, I don't want electricity, it's a terrible technology. Well, we can go back to 1600. There is no close substitute and enables complementary innovation. That's the part this chart shows. So one of the areas where electricity had use was manufacturing, because prior to electricity, they were using pneumatic and hydraulic, so pumped liquid, high pressure liquid or air to drive machines. Come electricity, you got electric motors, so now you can change. You don't need to use pressurized fluids. You can just use electricity and motors to drive it. So the Pearl Street Station was the first sort of power plant in New York, Thomas Edison's first commercial plant. So that happens in 1880. It took almost 40 years, okay? It took almost 40 years for electricity and electrical motors to penetrate 50% of manufacturing plants. One of the reasons, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons was it took a long time for people to say, now that electricity is here, we don't have to lay out our factory the same way like we did with, overhead pipes running pressurized fluids. So the machines had to be placed in a very specific arrangement. Once you have electricity and motors, you can take it anywhere you want. So you can reconfigure the whole factory, and central to the cost reductions was the rearrangement of the factory layout made possible electrification. So that's how the cost was reduced in manufacturing. It took, like it shows, it took a long time. Now, will AI take that long? No, that's what Hasabi says, right? It's industrial revolution, but 10 times faster. So it's not going to take 40 years this time. But in the past, it has taken a long time. And even this time, it may take longer than those who promote AI. It will take longer than they think, but maybe not as long as this chart shows. Manufacturing is a complex story. Main thing I want you to see here is, again, same thing. Productivity goes up, output goes up. So output in the US is at near all-time highs, okay? But employment goes down from 90.5 million to 11.5 million, almost half. It takes almost half the workers to produce the same, nearly same output. Why? Because workers are much more productive. This chart sort of brings it all together. This is evolution of jobs and occupations over 165 years, okay? So in the beginning, most of the occupations were agriculture related, okay? Most of the people worked in something to do with agriculture. Over time, that becomes a sliver, like hardly any people work in agriculture. There were job categories that barely existed. Now they make up like 20–30% of the job categories. And this chart is actually misleading. Why? Because not only has this happened, but the number of jobs has probably grown by almost 8 to 10 times. Like in 17, I think this is 1850, US population like maybe 25 million people. So the number of jobs was in that range. I mean, not in that range, but something in that range. And today's 163 million jobs in the US. So not only has this change happened, but the number of jobs has also gone up. So the scale of this change as to how jobs transform over years is absolutely staggering. John Maynard Keynes, well, the famous economist who did so much work during, before and during and after Second World War, he kind of wrote this marvelous essay, Economic Possibilities of Our Grandchildren. So this was 1930, in the middle of Great Depression. He's thinking about what's coming for his grandchildren. You wonder what we can write like this for our grandchildren. And basically he said, it's a beautiful read, the website is there, but what he said is basically it's a tug of war. As we need fewer people to do the thing we want to do, it takes fewer people because they're more productive. Can we create new things for them to do? And which is going to win? So read more about what he thought. He thought like there would be a 4-day work week and so forth. That didn't turn out to be true. That's what has happened in our past. Now I'm going to move to what's happening now. Okay, so paint a picture of what's happening now. So to begin this discussion, my hypothesis, working hypothesis, is that AI is a general purpose technology. Now, there is a very nice paper, OpenAI, University of Pennsylvania, very cute title, GPTs are GPT. So you know what GPT is, generative pre-trained transformers, that's one GPT, and the other GPT is general purpose technology. So very clever paper. They make the case, so they show that how those 4 characteristics are true, but I think we can think for ourselves. AI technologies are continuously improving. So with every 6 months, there is a new model release and it does better. Now Math Olympiad are being one. There is a whole discussion that I don't want to have about evaluations and whether there are misleading metrics, and in fact we will come back to this a little bit later on. But I think it's undeniable that they've been continuously improving. Moreover, it seems as if there is still scope for progress. So if you hear what people are saying at the frontier labs, this is still going on. At some point this will come to an end. But for now, this is absolutely true. Broad applicability, I don't have to convince you of that. They are applicable to many aspects of our life and society. There is no close alternative. So that is, if you choose to say, okay, I don't want to use, say, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, there really isn't something that will be a close substitute. You will be able to do something, but not quite. And then they will cause complementary innovation. So once they exist, we will be able to change manufacturing, education, healthcare. You can just think of things that could change because this thing exists. So how is this change going to happen? So let's just begin with thinking about a job. What's a job? So job is a collection of tasks. So I'm a professor. I teach my students. I go to classroom. I teach. I give them exams. I give them grades. I got grad students. I write papers. I write research grants. I travel to conferences. I come to a sabbatical like this one. So these are all different tasks. In any given day, I will do some collection of these tasks. That will change from day to day, week to week, month to month. But basically, it's a collection of tasks. Automation, which precedes AI, has been impacting this for a long time. Manufacturing is the poster child of this. And what it does is some tasks get automated, but not all the tasks. So what happens is, some tasks will get automated, so machine will do those tasks, the job will morph, job will change, and either you will add on some new tasks or create a new job. So automation changes composition of tasks. Some jobs are eliminated. So typist is a great example. So once we had personal computers and so forth, the idea of a typist was really not necessary. Well, in that case, actually, it's just not the technology. It's also that they made us into typists. So each one of us became a typist instead of having typists. So it's a little bit of not a great example. A much larger fraction of jobs is transformed. So the number of jobs that get eliminated is a relatively small fraction. Most other jobs are changed. And a great example is bank tellers. So when ATM machines came, where you could go to a bank and put a card into the machine and get cash, there used to be, that job was done by a human being. So you would go to a window and show your checkbook and withdraw 500 rupees or whatever you were doing. Well, when ATMs came, people said, well, all these bank tellers are going to be out of jobs. Well, it didn't quite work out that way because the job changed. Instead of bank tellers, they became relationship managers. So instead of doing this handing of the cash, they managed the finances of the individual. Maybe it was investment advice or, credit advice or buying a home. I mean, they just changed what they were doing. So that's what happens to most jobs. They morph. And finally, a much, much, much bigger thing is unforeseen future. New industries, new work, new jobs. Happened every time, likely happened this time too. And the big thing with AI that differentiates it from other technologies is that AI is actually a knowledge production system. So in principle, it can accelerate discovery, it can create new ideas that don't yet exist. And so its impact on this last bullet could be much greater than what we have seen with previous technologies. So there's been a lot of work on impact of automation on work, and I'm just going to show you a few things. This is Darren Acemoglu won the Nobel Prize in Economics a couple of years ago. And basically what he says is exactly what I've been saying, which is as automation came into being, new tasks were created that made up for any loss of jobs due to automation. And a mixture of new technology and how these change the task content of production. So if that stays in balance, we won't have very bad outcomes. And there's another paper, David Otter, another very, very famous economist. He says that it hasn't been labor displacing, but it has reduced labor share in value added. So that's it's a bit more nuanced impact of automation. And this chart kind of shows what Otter and Solomon talk about. So for the longest time, and there is actually wonderful deeper work on this. For the longest time, so if you think about an economy like Indian economy or US economy, you produce total wealth or total income. Some of it goes to capital and owners of capital, and some goes to the labor. That fraction that goes to the labor was stable at about 60 to 65% for a very long time. In fact, it goes back all the way up to 1900. There is this stability of how much money went to the labor versus how much money went to the owners of capital. Starting around 2000, there has been almost a 10-point drop, 10%, which is a huge amount that is going to labor. So this is a new phenomenon that we don't fully comprehend. Enter AI into this mix. So this was all still about automation. Enter AI into mix and everything accelerates. So McKinsey did a study right after ChatGPT came out, and basically they said that 30% of our work, 30% of hours work today could be automated by 2030. Okay, doesn't mean that those jobs are going to go away. It's just that much work will be automated. If that's replaced with some other task that these people do, well, I think the job can change and you can continue. So so they kind of do this for various different kind of occupations. Here is bad news for people in this room and people like me. This thing is coming for more educated, higher paid people. So this is the paper 2023, Felton, Roy, and Siemens. I've just taken 3 charts. You can go and read the paper. Exposure to generative AI and median salary. As your salary goes up, you are more exposed. As your education level goes up, you are more exposed. And interestingly, more creative element to your work, the more exposed you are. So this is a real wake up, cold shower, if you will. Picture is a little bit more nuanced than that those charts show. That even with this, projections are that even the job categories most exposed to generative AI could continue to add jobs just at a slower pace. Why? Because that part of the economy is going to grow. So total number of jobs, even though this thing is automating significant pieces of it, would still enable some at a slower rate job growth. And again, I will make these slides available so you can read this at your leisure. So as this change happens, what kind of skills are we going to need? So this is really the students in this room and the educators in this room. So this is McKinsey Global Institute again. if you want to be in the highest wage quartile, which I suspect all of you want to be in the highest or second highest wage quartile, technological skills clearly are going to be an important part. So even at the highest level, it's 26% that you need to have technological skills, clearly. But what really is staggering is social and emotional skills, 40% social and emotional skills. And what goes down is cognitive skills and higher cognitive skills. And I think it's sort of easy to understand what's going on here. As these AI systems get better and better at what they do, the cognitive part of what we do doesn't require as much effort because the machines will do quite a bit of it. What will be necessary for human workers will be ability to work with other people, having social, emotional IQ, understanding each other. So that's going to take more premium. And so it's really an kind of a wake-up call to educators, especially in technological institutions like IIT or others, that we need to pay a lot more attention to what we teach our students in terms of their social and emotional skills. A little bit more of this, but I want to move on. So again, this is World Economic Forum 2025, analytical thinking. But second is resilience, flexibility, and agility. That they think that's like the number 2 skill we need to have. Because I think they see disruption. They see a lot of upheaval. So are you resilient? Can you bounce back from failures? Can you take disruption? Are you flexible? Are you agile? So I think that takes on leadership and social influence, creative thinking. Skills on the rise. I want to skip past this. Next 2 or 3 charts are really the latest data that we have. So this is a paper in late 25 November called Canaries in Coal Mine. Okay, they looked at jobs data from the latest sources, and what they say is that people who are in early career, so recent graduates and maybe the first 2 or 3 years, their ability to land jobs has dramatically declined. So this is a huge issue. It's just, I think in public consciousness, this is just appearing because of the potential for impact. Because if you cannot get into your first job, how are you going to progress? So some social intervention is going to be needed if this persists, that the fresh graduates are not able to get jobs. So that's a big wake-up call. This is another one. So on the right-hand side, so I made a passing reference to these evaluations that these AI systems can beat Math Olympiad and do all these amazing things. How do they do on real-world jobs? And so there is a company called Mercor, started by 3 22-year-old kids. They have something called the Apex test, and they tested these AI systems on real-world task compositions for, say, lawyers. I think they did lawyers and management consultants and investment banking. Okay, and they found that most of these systems are performing at like 25% level. So there is no chance that these things are ready for these kinds of high-skill, experienced jobs like investment banking. So that's the good news. The bad news is until now, these AI training systems, they were using a lot of human labor. So these AI systems are not pure AI. They are using data and they're using human beings to label the data and train the AI systems. That labor was sort of poorly paid people in Africa or Philippines or India. There is a new breed of AI training companies that are hiring top tier professionals who may be out of a job because they got laid off. They are using them to train AI to perform the tasks that a skilled high professional does. So until recently, the freelance labor force training AI models for predominantly low paid, low status workers. Now it is increasingly made up of highly qualified contractors with, say, MBAs or PhDs and so forth. They are training these investment banking and so forth. So I think once this thing runs its course, these systems are going to get a lot better. Final chart on what's happening now. So there is a study of what could be automated, and they divide into 2 parts. Non-physical work, that is, just basically mental work, and then work that requires some physical intervention. So in the US, 65% of the work is non-physical and 35% requires some physical attributes. A total of 57% of work hours are automatable, mostly in the non-physical, but even in the physical with the robotics coming, that could happen. All right, so that is the state of the, that's the latest we know about what's happening with jobs and work and so forth. I'm going to now talk a little bit about the future and then we will go into Q&A. So I want to begin this discussion of what's coming in the future. I want to begin with this wonderful book called Machines of Loving Grace, written by John Markoff. John Markoff was a long time technology and science correspondent for New York Times, and he used to be, he was based in Silicon Valley, and he would report on what was going on to NYT, and he was like every Tuesday or whenever the technology section came, you would read about him. He wrote this book, and basically he was commenting on what he saw was happening in 2015, mostly with automated driving, because that was beginning, and Google, I forget the name of the company, they were building out these automated driving systems, and basically he said there is a real inflection point. Are we going to design systems where we take humans out of the loop, or are we going to design systems in which humans are deeply involved? And again, I don't want to read the quote, but this is an old debate in AI. It's called artificial intelligence or intelligence augmentation. So the question is it going to be artificial intelligence or is it going to be intelligence augmentation? So and this goes back to the history of AI. Eric Brynjolfsson at Stanford wrote a really interesting paper in 2023 where he points to a major fallacy in our thinking. So the little circle, so the green circle is all the tasks that humans do. These are all the tasks that any one of us does in any of the occupations. And a subset of that could be automated. Right, so a subset of those tasks could be automated with this AI system. That little circle could be as big as the big circle. In principle, it could just get bigger and bigger and bigger. But what he says is our attention should be paid to the larger rectangle. These are all the tasks that could be done in the future by a combination of humans and machines. And these are not things that we are not doing. So what he says is, and he calls it the Turing trap, that we can get trapped into that little circle. He says, a common fallacy is to assume that all or most productivity enhancing innovations belong in the first category, automation. However, the second category, augmentation, which is what John Markoff was talking about, has been far more important throughout the past 2 centuries. And we need to be paying attention to this augmentation rather than replacement. And this is where the big potential is. Now go back to the comment I made in passing that these AI systems are potentially good at idea creation, product creation. So it could be that the right combination will allow us to fill that square with interesting things to do and important things to do. And we can talk a lot more about this. In the interest of time, I'm going to sort of go past that. However, the current situation is not pointing in the right direction. So human share of work is projected to decline from 47% to 33%, and most of it is because of automation. So automation is going to sort of reduce the human share of work. And it's the same story. So machines do more, so they go from 22% to 34%. Humans plus machines slightly increases 30 to 33, but most of the decline is human work that goes from 47 to 33%. So currently we are not on track for augmentation. I'm going to now bring this to a close with the last few slides. There was a very nice paper, 2021, so before this ChatGPT thing. So he went back and looked through the history of technology and divides it into 3 eras. Mechanization, so that's steam engine, industrial revolution, computer era, and then the AI era. So in the mechanization era, primary task of human operators is to operate the machine. So think of a steam engine, a railway run on a steam engine, and then the operator would run the steam engine. So that was our job. The job of the worker was to run the machine, whether that was in a factory or in transport or what have you. Role of the machine was a tool. It was a tool that the humans operated, and human-machine relationship was human-machine interaction. Okay, so you basically were an operator. In computer era, we change a little bit. So now it is both manual operation, but also a lot of monitoring. So in factories where this thing happened first, a lot of machines had automated controls and so forth, and then the human operator was monitoring what the machine is doing and operating the machine. So here now the machine becomes an assistive tool. So it's not a pure tool, it's like assisting the human in tasks that are not easy for humans. And then the dominant paradigm was human-computer interaction, HCI. We are entering this AI era where the primary task of human operator is going to become collaboration with AI-based intelligent machines. Role of the machine now becomes a collaborative teammate, and the relationship now changes from an assistive tool or a tool to a collaborator, to a colleague. In my opinion, this is in its infancy. This thing is not happening to any level that I would like to see. There is a very nice paper, 2024, written by a bunch of cognitive scientists, and they actually provide a framework as to how this might happen. So first you begin on the left-hand side. We are really, really good at working with each other. I mean, this is what has made human society what it is, because we know how to work with each other. And the way it happens is that we have models for each other. So in my head, I have a model for all of you. You are my audience. Some of you are students, some of you are professors. I know how you might be thinking. You have a model for me. Oh, this guy is a professor from California. You know, he's got this kind of background. He was a student here. You have a model for me. And that allows us to have seamless interaction and collaboration. And you can read my thoughts. I can read your thoughts. That's how we work with each other. When we think of machines as tools, machine has no intelligence, but the human has a model for the machine. You know, maybe it's a very reliable machine, maybe it's a finicky machine, maybe it breaks down all the time, maybe it's my car with lots of problems. I have a model for that car. Oh, it's going to break down on the highway. You know, I better have some spare tire or something. But when it comes machines as thought partners, we are going to have models both ways. So I'm convinced that we humans will always have models for these AI systems, because our mind, our brains are built to create these models. For anything we create models in our head, and that's how we interact. If machine also had models of us that were designed for collaboration, then you can imagine a future where machines are helping humans, humans are working with machines and producing desirable outcomes. So I think this is where we need to go. I'm now about to close. To close, I want to go back to one of the founding fathers of my field. I'm a control theorist. Spent most of my life doing controls. One of the pioneering players in that field was Norbert Wiener, who along with John von Neumann was thought to be the two great mathematicians of 20th century. He did many, many things. He was invited in 1949 by New York Times. 1949, okay guys, this is 1949. He was invited by New York Times to write a popular article on what he saw as the future of technology and what was going to happen to society. So he wrote this thing and sent it to New York Times by mail. There was no email at the time, so he sent it by mail. The editors read it. They wanted him to make some changes. And they sent it by mail back to him. By the time he was in Mexico, traveling somewhere, he comes back after 2-3 months, and he sees all these edits that these people want him to make. He says, you know what, I don't care. I'm not writing this thing. You can just go away. John Markoff, the same guy, actually dug up that article in the archives of MIT, and he has put it on the website of New York Times. You can go and read it. I put a link there. He wrote also a book called Human Use of Human Beings. Cybernetics, I mean, all those things we did. There are 3 things from that New York Times article that I took out. I'm not going to read all of them, but there are 2 of them that are really, really profound and that are worth pondering. He says, finally, the machines will do what we ask them to do, not what we ought to ask them to do. We don't think enough about what should we ask them to do for us. And then he says, and this is for all of us who work on AI and adaptive intelligence and so forth. Every degree of independence we give the machine is a degree of possible defiance of our wishes. So as these machines get more adaptive intelligence and ability to garner resources, we must be open to this. Robert Pirsig wrote this classic called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It was like one of the most revolutionary books of its time in the 70s, and it's really, although it says Zen and Art of Motorcycle, it really is about values, human values. What do we really care about? And it's a beautiful book, and he has a sentence in there that I think is really appropriate for the moment we are in. Technology presumes that there is only one way to do things, but there never is. So whenever we think about AI and read about AI and all the stuff that's going on, remember that there are different ways of doing things. It's not the only way. Concluding thoughts. So I sort of framed the thing in terms of general purpose technologies, and if that framing is correct, the impact could be as large as Industrial Revolution, extremely profound. There is a quote that sometimes is attributed to Bill Gates. I used to attribute this to Bill Gates, but it's not true. It goes back to somebody much earlier called Amara. He says that we overestimate the change that will happen in 2 years, but underestimate the change that will happen in 10 years. You apply to today, there's all this hype and everybody thinking, this is just coming in 2 years, and we probably are overestimating. In fact, the leaders of this field say we are hyping. But by this law, we could be severely underestimating the change that will happen in 10 years. So by 2035, the world could look dramatically different than you and I are imagining. Centering on human and social welfare is absolutely crucial, and in my opinion, we're slightly behind, if not somewhat quite a bit behind. Fourth point is for people like us, especially the educators in this audience, education system is going to have to respond to this change that's coming. In my humble opinion, we are way behind. We are not thinking nearly enough of what to do with our education system. It's broken at so many levels in the face of AI. Again, we can talk about this in Q&A if you like. And finally, and this is really the most important thing that I want to say, it is not all preordained. It is not as if this is just going to happen to us. Just get ready and take it as it comes. No, I think we all have a role to play. There is agency. We shouldn't give up our agency in shaping this future. It's not easy. Like I told you, I'm not going to give you any answers, but I do want us to remember that we have agency in this change. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pramod. That was fantastic. I'll go back to one of the first slides that you spoke about, the drop in GDP contribution of countries which did go through the revolution, industrial revolution. Do you see a similar pattern playing out for countries that do not, that lag behind? And if so, what would be your recommendation for countries that lag behind?
It's a very hard question, and I think I would be a fool to prognosticate. What I do think is that if it turns out that AI is productivity enhancing the way it might be, countries that don't use it on a per capita basis could fall way behind. So it isn't as if, there could be some job displacement, but it won't be like, to me, it won't be like industrial revolution. It will be more like some sort of societies could become much more productive. And so in that sense, that sort of their share of GDP could go up. But it's a very difficult question to prognosticate. I don't think it's going to be like the last time.
Tell me, my feeling is that like the computer revolution which took place in the late 20th century and first part of the 5-10 years of this, will India dominate the scene in AI similar to what we did in the late 20th century?
So I'll give you sort of, so there is this clip that's going viral on Facebook and internet about somebody from IMF saying that India is not a first-rate power, etc. I do think that AI adoption in India is quite strong. So I think there is a mistake that's being made in thinking that there is not adoption. I think where India needs to devote more effort and resources and just concentration is competing in at the frontier of. So there I feel like, you know, Bharat Jain I think is a fantastic example that IIT Bombay is leading on. I think there should be lots more of that kind of work also, so that we are creating technologies that are context specific and are designed for the Indian context. So will it dominate? I don't know whether it will dominate. India certainly has the potential for highly educated people. I mean, that's what we are really good at. And so you have highly educated people with the right mindset and right training and right thinking. But this beast is a very different kind of beast. This is not, even the computer analogy doesn't quite work here because of the nature of this technology. So I think the potential is very, very strong. And because it's going to impact all areas, right? So it's healthcare, it's manufacturing, it's education. So just think about 1.4 billion people with all these different things. If you could innovate and create competencies, why we shouldn't be a big player? I think we should be. And we can be.
Hello, sir. So I'm Somdeep. It's a pleasure to listen to you again. So I have twofold question. One is, can you elaborate a little more about that social technology side of artificial intelligence, the social tech, what you said? And another part is, like in India, we have, in other places also we are seeing lot of AI people, they are moving towards, looking towards philosophy as a subject. But India, we have very rich tradition of philosophy, like the 100th year of Indian Philosophical Congress that happened here in IIT Bombay. So are we thinking that Madhyamik philosophy of Buddhism to or those kind of, because India AI conference is happening all over India, but I cannot see anything. So what your thought about that? Thank you.
Yeah, so let me take the first one first. I mean, I think there are two areas that, or three areas that jump right to my mind as to where AI in India could be very powerful. First is education. We got, you know, tens of millions of young kids needing high quality education. I just saw a startup that is making for K through 12 AI based systems available for personalized education. So I don't see why there couldn't be a lot more of personalized education at scale of millions and millions of students using AI. Because right now we are on a factory type system. Our education is a factory system. We put 200 students in this room, a professor teaches, we exam them, give them examination, and that's our teaching. That's not far from ideal. So you can imagine a future, same thing with healthcare. I mean, the access to high quality healthcare with AI, much more like possible. Manufacturing is another domain where AI is going to have a big impact. So there are many areas where I feel societally useful use of AI is there for us to capture. As to philosophy, I mean, you know, I do think about it a lot. One question that I don't think anybody knows the answer, but it's certainly an important question, is, well, one is consciousness. So will silicon-based machines acquire consciousness? And I think that question is not settled. So if, you know, Mahayana or Advaitic Vedanta or so forth can shed some light on that question, I think intellectually that would be very, very important. I read about that stuff, but it seems as if there is no clear conclusion on that. But people worry about it. People worry the time that if these things become conscious, then can you turn them off? Will they feel pain? I mean, people worry about this kind of stuff. So maybe for most of us, that's kind of, you know, fanciful thinking, but for philosophers, it's not so fanciful. So maybe something like that. Maybe we can pick up offline and talk more about how philosophy can play a role.
Yeah, thanks. Great lecture. So I have a couple of like sort of maybe connected questions. So the first thing is, yeah, so with AI as a general purpose technology, so one of the points I was thinking a lot about is the broad applicability, right? Like, so I think of the four claims, that was the one which I found perhaps the more like, because I think it's sector wise penetration is going to be extremely like, you know, diverse, right? Like
Uneven.
I think
Uneven.
uneven, yeah, to begin with, right? So so I like would love to get thoughts on that. And then what is the potential economic fallout of this unevenness, right? Because if it supercharges development in certain sectors, or as we saw, like, okay, jobs, maybe jobs disappear or morph to the point we're not able to keep up, then what is the economic fallout on other sectors? And then so that could lead to a cascading economic failure if we don't have some backup mechanisms. Yeah.
So let's take the first part. And I think what you say is true, and it's called the jagged edge of AI, that AI does really well in some things and then does disastrously badly in others. And we are seeing that in early implementations. Like, so coding has become like the #1 thing that AI is supposedly good at, and people are using it. My kids work in startup companies and they tell me their employees are using it. So yeah, I think coding is certainly one. I think healthcare is the next big one. I think you already see articles in JAMA and others that show that either AI alone or AI plus a physician is a lot better than a doctor alone. So I think use cases in healthcare are going to be very, very big. And you know, this is true of general purpose technologies, right? So they start out being kludgy, but they get better. So as we get better at some of these things, you know, maybe we will do better at education, which is certainly my fond hope, that we will do a better job of education than we have done for the last 2,000 years. Well, last 500 years. 2,000 years ago, we had Guru Shishya system where you had actually individual attention. Now we have the factory model, and now I want to see if we can go back to that kind of individualized education. So yeah, I think you're right that it is uneven, but I expect that to change as the technology improves. And also we learn how to use it. That's a big thing. And the electricity example shows it's not obvious how to use some of these things. And some of this will require organizational change. Companies and classrooms and hospitals will have to change the way they do things. That might take some time to figure out. What if it supercharges some things? And so I think I'll say two things about that, which is not direct answer to you, but I think it's worth saying. In the beginning, and David Otter used to say this, I assume he still says this, he thought that AI would take lower skill workers, people at sort of the 50% and below, and with this they will become higher skilled. Well, it has turned out, and so that's good, that's great news, right? So if AI plus a low skill person can certainly compete with a high skill person, that's a good thing, and it can raise productivity and then wages. As it turns out, it's actually the higher skilled people who have learned how to use AI to improve themselves. And so it hasn't quite gone the way Otter thought. Could it change? I mean, I don't think that what is today is going to be true in 5 years. I think everything is going to change along the directions that I laid out. So I hope that kind of at least partially answers your question. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so I had, I also, like, great lecture. We should have 4 of these. Like, so maybe this is my limited knowledge of history, but because you gave the example of the Industrial Revolution, and there was this lag from 1750 to 1830. Right. So, like, something I worry about is that in the previous revolutions that happened, 2 or 3 generations suffered a lot, but because the technology had a big burst, and then there was a period of calm in which it was more or less constant. So humans got a chance to adapt to it. That's why different kinds of job came back. But in this wave, is it possible that this thing evolves at a faster rate than humans can adapt to it?
Absolutely. So I think you are putting your finger on something that's very, very important, is that our experience with previous technological revolutions is that they were slower than human time constant. This one is changing at a much faster clip. And can we as individuals or can we as organizations and society adapt to it in time is a big question mark. And it's not clear. I mean, it's, you feel as if institutions and governments are behind the curve. They don't know how to regulate this stuff. There is a lobby that says don't regulate because you will stifle innovation. And there is an argument to be had there. So yeah, I mean, I think it could be that this technology, I mean, that's what Hasabi says, right? It's going to be 10 times bigger and 10 times faster. If it's 10 times faster, our organizations and societal structures are not designed to tolerate that change. So there will be, if that reality pans out, there will be upheaval. And which is why I give this, that's the biggest reason I give this talk, is because there is the potential for upheaval. And it happened even in Industrial Revolution. I mean, the Luddites thing is real. And it isn't just the technology, it's how it is used. That's the most important thing. Technology and how you put it into practice, whether that's in your individual life, your home, or your workplace, or your company, or your country. These are all different penetrations of technology, and how that gets done is a joint production of the technology and the users like us, and we have a role to play. So I don't think we can't control the speed at which this develops, except, there was a time when people were saying just stop development, and I think there is probably still a group of people that say stop development. There is also the criticism that people who are warning us are the same ones who are creating it, right? Like Amadei and Hasabi, I mean, these are the guys in charge of this stuff, right? So why are they warning us? Because, okay, so we can talk about that at length, but the truth of the matter is, even if it is not as far-reaching as the first bullet I had, which is like AGI to ASI, even sort of milder version of it is still very disruptive, still very, very disruptive. And the good thing is that this time we kind of know, so hopefully we can get ahead of the curve.
Yes, sir. Amazing lecture and amazing perspective also. So my question would be, with the dawn of AI data centers as well, right, the huge amount of computing power, right, and the huge demand on the material side as well, right, and energy, right, would we be able to sustain it for the coming days, apart from the workforce?
So great question. And I do give another talk that I didn't touch here on AI and energy, because one of my research areas is electric power grids and renewable penetration and how to run our power grid without carbon and fossil fuel sources. Some facts, okay? Some facts. Current, and these are US facts. So current AI data center, etc. consumption is 5% of US electricity use, 5%. High-end projections are like 12%. So it's a lot, but it's not like dominant, right? I mean, so we are still going to use electricity for other things like air conditioning, like lighting, running our factories. So that still remains the dominant use of electricity. And also electricity itself is like 20-25% of the total energy used. So we have transport, which we use oil and gas for, right? And manufacturing. So yes, so energy use is really a big deal, and it is important, and we need to increase energy efficiency of computing systems and data centers. Good news there is that the chip companies, NVIDIA and others, are very aware of this. And if you look at, say, per flop energy consumption, it's like orders of magnitudes every year coming down. Will it flatten out? That's quite possible that it will, asymptote out and we won't be able to improve this any further. But I feel like between improving energy efficiency of chips, of data centers and everything, there is room there, and then there is room to produce the needed electricity. One data point on this. And I just read and heard about this, but I haven't checked my sources. So, please check if you really want to go there. I've heard a claim that China has built 3 times the electricity capacity of what's needed for AI. So if that becomes the bottleneck, they have the answer because they built out the power grid and the supply. So short answer is, yeah, I think, and it's power and it's water. Water is an equally big issue with these AI data centers. One final comment on this, it could turn out that over the longer horizon, like 20, 30, 40 years, CMOS-based, CMOS, by the way, those who don't know, is the semiconductor technology that's used to make our chips. It's the silicon-based technology. May turn out to have limits of energy efficiency, and we might have to go to something different because our brain operates at much, much higher energy efficiency, okay? Much, much higher. So there are research projects that are being funded in the US that I had some part in, called organoid intelligence. So what you do is you take a bunch of cells, biological cells, and you put them in a petri dish, and you program them to do computational tasks. Now that's in its infancy, okay? So this is like really lab research project that has no idea about how to scale, how to do the computations that we want to do. Could that ultimately turn out to be the way we do in 30, 40, 50 years? I mean, who is to say? But in the medium term, I think the energy problem is going to be a major problem. And can we build the grid? And in the US, there is a real big problem. I don't know much about India, but I imagine India would be another place where building the energy infrastructure would be a big issue. But is it showstopper? I mean, I would like to think that it's not. And we can do a lot more detail of what I just finished telling you, because there's data on everything I said. There is data, and I can send you my slides. I mean, I gave another talk last October on exactly this topic.
Pramod, can you throw some light on the 2 aspects of AI?
Okay.
One is the positive growth aspect and the negative aspect, which is the defense and destructive aspect.
Yeah, sure. So there isn't enough time to actually paint full picture of both. On the positive side, to me, 2 things really motivate. Healthcare. I mean, the healthcare system almost everywhere in the world is just abysmal, right? Even in the advanced countries where we spend a lot of money, it is still really not that good. AI could really make a huge impact on the healthcare system. All the way from diagnosis to therapeutics to hospital management. I mean, just imagine every kind of use, huge opportunity. And education, another big sector that can use with improvement. Those are, to me, positive cases. So AI increases productivity, supercharges discovery science. These are positive cases, okay? So Hassabis is like, stated goal is he wants to create AI system that will win Nobel Prizes in science. AI system will win the Nobel, not Hassabis, but the AI system. So that's a positive case. Maybe we have much greater discovery, much faster discovery science. That's a positive case. Negative case, well, I mean, not the single, but one of the biggest fears is AI makes misinformation on steroids. So you think we have a misinformation problem today where, on WhatsApp groups, you get all kinds of concocted videos and information that's all bogus. With AI systems, you won't be able to tell the difference. You won't be able to tell the difference. It will be lifelike. It will be like, it's like my wife saying that she has been kidnapped and it's real, and what am I going to do? This, by the way, I don't know if you watch Black Mirror. It's a British sci-fi show. Yeah, so to me, so misinformation, spread of misinformation with AI, and all kinds of negative consequences of that. Like, can democracies really sustain in the face of this kind of misinformation? Not so clear. Democracy was designed at a certain point in time, like we live in this very different era, and with AI, this gets much worse. So that's sort of the negative case of AI, is everything that affects us on the negative side could get much more accelerated with AI. Cyber crimes could get much worse with AI. So that's the negative side.
Yeah, I guess with the interest of time, we'll take one more question.
So you mentioned that moving forward, we need to have more human centricity and social welfare. So what kind of framework or direction should we take? Also following up on the last lecture with cyber-physical cognitive systems.
Right.
So how do we ensure that humans, even though they have their capabilities and these new systems, they are increasing in capabilities, they don't get treated like machines?
Yeah.
You know?
So, I think in my talk on this AI for Science conclave, I did a much longer version of this. I just had one slide here, which is humans and machines having models of each other and using that as collaborative thought partners. To me, that's kind of the direction. There is another thing that I mentioned in that talk, which is social learning. So social learning is this idea that two human beings, when they interact, they very rapidly change roles from teacher to student. So right now, I'm acting as teacher and you are acting as student. But when you questioned me, you became, although you didn't mean to, became a teacher and I became a student. And we do this effortlessly between human beings. Okay, we change roles, in microseconds, if you will. Okay, but that's how humans interact and learn from each other. So this is called social learning. There's the whole theory of it. Can we build this AI system so that they're capable of this kind of learning with humans? Third direction, which again, lamentably not happening as well, current AI development is on a trajectory of scaling. So what is that? Well, somebody, and I think this guy, I think it was at Johns Hopkins, he discovered the scaling laws, right? So if you double the compute and double the data and double, I think that's the third thing, then your performance improves by so much. So it's a logarithmic, it's a logarithmic relationship. So every doubling gives you so much improvement in performance. We are still on the scaling laws. Okay, so far as I know, the scaling laws are still valid, which means all the companies are basically in the game of more data, more GPUs, and I think the third, or more in, I don't know what the third thing is. There is an that is now how humans that's not how our children develop their intelligence. Children love their intelligence by interacting with things around them and interacting with their parents and their siblings and so forth. So human intelligence, although some of it is through evolution, our brain is wired with the circuits. So when we are born, it's not like, zero. We come with something, but then all of the training of the brain happens through interactions. These AI systems are not following that route at all. So the idea is that what if we built our AI systems that mimics how humans and infants learn intelligence through interaction with physical world and interaction with other human beings. And the claim, and it's a claim is that if we were to take that other path for developing AI, which is much more human-centric and actually uses how humans become intelligent, then maybe they will encode human values better than trying to force these systems to encode values that we care about. So these are some of the ideas that people are thinking about in terms of how to make them more human and society-centric. But it's a big open question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for being here so late in the evening.
I think it was indeed an eye-opening and something which we got exposed to, which we never realized like this was the style. So as we conclude, I request Professor Harish Pillai to give the vote of thanks. He is head of the Department of Electrical Engineering. Yeah, over to you, sir.
All right, sorry folks, but all good things must end. Thank you very much, Professor Khargonekar, for very nice 90 minutes. And I guess it is my duty also to thank a whole set of other people, but I'm afraid that I'll miss out names, but certainly the NR Kamath committee for giving us Professor Khargonekar. and the Dean ACR office and all the other people in the Dean ACR office and the DRF. Thank you very much, and forgive me for missing out anyone else. I'm sure there are a lot of people who did contribute to us listening to this, 90 minutes of lecture from Professor Khargonekar.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I guess that is not part of it.
Thank you. Oh. Thank you very much. Shall I open this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I guess we can go for the refreshments now.